begin. Welcome everyone. My name is Divya Pawar and I'm a training coordinator at the Temple Small Business Development Center. We help small businesses start and grow, and we're doing this through consulting over the phone or through Zoom and with a robust calendar of training events. You are here for the Food Business Series, Marketing Communications, Social Media, Influencers webinar. This webinar is the 7th in the 9-part series, and it will cover how to communicate with customers through different marketing techniques such as social media, paid influencers, and more. We will also have office hours tomorrow from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. where you can ask specific questions to Mark. I would also post a link for it in the chat. For the webinar, we have all the attendees muted, and we encourage you to put your questions in the chat or Q&A. All attendees will receive the presentation and recording after the webinar. This webinar was presented by Mark Lamondon from Tandem Associates. And with that, I will turn the floor to Mark.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to have some of you back. I'm reading through the list, and some of you look like you joined us before, as I do every time. And I think George does the same when he does his bit. Let me know if this is your first webinar with us. The people that I know have been here a few times, you don't have to necessarily respond, but just let me know if this is your first one. In the chat, sorry. I wasn't very specific about that, was I? Oh, nobody's new? Cool, other than Jackie. Jackie would be new.
I'm new.
Okay, well, great. And we have a nice turnout, so that's awesome. So for the next hour and a half, we're going to be going through, some things, as Divya said, about the various components of marketing communications. We'll spend a fair amount on social media because, as most of you are, just getting started in your business or in the early stages of getting your business started, social plays a huge role along with your website and all that in terms of your communication. So we want to spend a good amount of time there, but we will take you through, as we always do, some of the foundational strategies, if you will, of what marketing communications is all about and the various elements of it. And then, as always, ask in the chat anything that you want, and then we'll, stop us. Don't worry about stopping us. We might not see it right away, but we'll definitely get to it. Holly says, I think that I may have done one other one in the series a while ago. Well, welcome back, Holly. That's great. If it's your first one, welcome. And if it's your second one, all the better. Okay, so with that, we'll get started here. All of you, you're familiar with the whole SBDC, so I don't need to go through that commercial again. As you know, it's a great program and with great resources. Most of you know who I am, and so we won't dwell on that. George is my co-teacher, not tonight, but and most of you have had some time with George. I don't know why anybody would go to Disney World in August, but that's where he is with his family. So God bless him in the heat. And tonight with me is Jackie Marshall. Jackie does a number of things for Tandem Associates, but a lot of it has to revolve around social media and website development and monitoring and all that kind of stuff. So she'll be basically taking you through most of the social media content a little later. So Jack, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm 25 years old. I went to school up in Lehigh Valley at a small college called Moravian College. And then shortly after I graduated, I found a job at Tandem with Mark. And like he said, I do a number of things there, but most of it revolves around social media and websites. And I've been there for 3 years and I love it. I don't tell them that, but we have a good time.
And for those of you who are on last week, you met her brother, Jeff Marshall, who was taking us through all the creative development.
Yes, that crazy man.
Actually, it's her dad. I was just trying to see if I could get a rise out of her that it's her brother.
Nope.
Okay, so with that, let's get started on some of this content. And So tonight, like I said, what we're trying to accomplish is really understand the full range of marketing communications across all the different channels, and how effectively you can utilize them for your particular needs. Again, just to start at a 30,000-foot view. So a marketing objective, as you know from the stuff that George and I have been presenting, is a measurable statement about what we're trying to accomplish, right? So it's about, an objective is about a measurable component. So you either want to increase awareness. That's a very typical first step, is that you want to make people aware of your product, right? And you might already have some awareness for what you're doing, but you want to attract new people that may be marginally aware of you, or have been a user in the past, and bring them back. Obviously, another objective is to increase frequency among current people who are using it. So this is for established products more so than newer ones. And you can imagine that, a product like Oreos, has a very established level of awareness and a very broad following of people, but they may not be buying it as frequently as Nabisco would like them to. So their objective would be to increase the frequency of consumption and purchase. Another role can be increasing the transaction size. This is definitely true in other products besides just consumer products or food products. But you might be, let's say, they're aware of you and they've bought your 2-ounce product, but you've come out with an 8-ounce product. You want to make sure they're buying your 8-ounce, because that's going to hopefully be a lot better for you in the long run in terms of selling more product and a higher ring and all of that. And then some advertising or some marketing communications is just about creating an image, or largely about creating an image. This is more prevalent today, where you're not necessarily doing a hard sell about the benefits and attributes of your products, but just an image. And a lot of that's in fashion and products like that. Certainly the car business is fraught with marketing communications that people are selling image more than anything concrete in terms of a rational sell. It's all about, cars racing down rain slick highways and making you fall in love that way. And another objective for marketing communications is to seed future intention. So this is very much the case in larger ticket items. So if a car would be an example, certainly appliances. If you're in the market down the road a bit for a new washer or dryer or refrigerator or a new 70-inch television, you're not necessarily ready to buy today, but we want to encourage people about how wonderful our product is in advance, because they tend to do some research along the way, and you want to be part of that process. And then another one that's very popular today, obviously, is creating brand ambassadors. And, that's because traditional advertising and marketing is less prevalent today, and more of it is based on social or the old school word of mouth. If you have people that are really positive about your product, whether they're paid influencers or they're just people who happen to fall in love and want to talk about your product, they're very powerful. So most people these days are definitely focused on trying to find ways, either on a paid or unpaid basis, to get some followers that way. Different channels. So the most traditional one would be advertising. Consumer promotion is a bucket for all things like contests, sweepstakes, coupons, and the like. So if you go, even sampling, right? So if you're at a booth, let's say you have a food truck and you're sampling out of that food truck, you're coming up with a new sandwich or a new whatever. If you're giving people pieces of it or whatever for them to sample, that's a good example of consumer promotion. Public relations is what the old school it would be, trying to get some coverage without paying for it. Social media and PR have sort of blended together on a lot of levels at the moment. Social media we're very familiar with, and we're going to go through in great detail. Direct marketing, you think about it doesn't happen as much in your mailbox as it used to, but it certainly has in your email box. If you sit there and do any any research or whatever. If you're looking for something, all of a sudden, they're going to identify you're looking for a new set of shoes, a new pair of shoes. They're going to be starting to target you with different products that are related to that. It may not even be the shoes you're looking at. It could be a different company, but they're definitely going to do that. And certain industries are huge in this, insurance industries, healthcare industries. They're big into direct marketing. Events and sponsorships, and we've talked in the past with many of you, but this is a great thing to consider for some of your when you're getting started early in your development. Community events and all that. It's a great way to reach out to people, get some awareness of what you're doing, and gain some trial and sampling. So there's a lot to be done there. Account-specific marketing is a specific tool used with retailers where you work collaboratively with whatever retailer that might be. So if in your case, let's say you shop at Whole Foods or Acme or Giant or whatever, and you're part of their loyalty program, a manufacturer is going to want to work with Acme or whoever to promote their products through that loyalty program, whether they're on sale, whether they're doing another promotion like a buy one, get one, whatever it might be. And it's all very targeted to that specific retailer. Much of consumer promotion has moved into that area over the last 5 years because it's much more efficient. Okay, so just to get some definitions out of the way, what's paid media? Obviously, it's any marketing communications that you pay for. Those are examples of what they might be, but that's coming out of your pocket, paid media. So those are ones you want to minimize at this early stage of your development. Owned media is anything that you create and publish. So your website, whatever you develop on your website, you own that messaging. You've created it yourself. It costs something to build that website, but it's not like it costs to promote it in an ad or whatever. If you do any blogs, if you do any social media, any newsletters, anything like that, that's considered owned media. You own it, you created it, nobody else. And then earned media is somebody else creates it. And you might work with somebody to get this done. An influencer would be a good example of that, that if you find an influencer that's interested in your product, you might share some content back and forth with them that they might want to talk about your product. It can also be more traditional stuff of like press coverage, PR. If you've seen it where some new restaurant or whatever is being promoted on the local news channel, they're covering a cool story that way. It's a social, it's a consumer interest story. They don't pay for that. That's considered earned media, which takes some getting done, right? You have to work with contacts within the journalism field to get that kind of feed and that kind of coverage, but it can be really, really valuable if you're lucky enough to do that. All right, so those are the differences between owned and paid and earned media. Let's talk about, again, on a very broad level, what's brand positioning, okay? So this is basically your identity that you're trying to get in somebody's brain and whatever that defined target audience is. So whatever that means to you, it's the perception of your company in those people's minds that who can benefit from your services. So this is something you create. It doesn't have to be explicit. It can be very, and we'll give you some examples in a minute. It can be a little bit more vague than that, but this is actually the goal. The goal is to get that positive perception in their minds. It's also how you define your offering to anybody else. So, the classic way to think about this is, what's your elevator speech, right? So if you were riding in an elevator or stuck in an elevator for somebody and you had 30 seconds to tell them what you do because you're bored standing next to each other and saying, okay, what do you do for a living? That 30 seconds should capture the essence of your brand position. And so you want to talk about it in broader levels than just, oh, I'm in the food business, or, oh, I have a food truck, or whatever. You want to be very specific to you and the benefits that you're delivering for that. So you might sit there and say, I've got a food truck that specializes in Jamaican, recipes. And so now somebody riding that elevator with you has got it. Like now, okay, that's what's different about you. So there's different ways that we in the marketing and communications field can sort of work with clients to get this done. It's an exercise. This is not something you do very quickly. You have to think about it. You want to talk to other people about it. It's a labor of love because you want to make sure it really, really hones in on exactly what you're trying to accomplish, because everything will be built around this once you establish what that positioning statement is. So it might seem easy on the surface, but it's not. So for example, a classic format is for whatever the target audience is that you've identified. Your brand is the whatever. So, and I'll go through this in a second, that delivers a benefit, a point of difference or whatever, because only your brand is capable of doing that. It's the support point. So just to walk through this, you can't, for you to say for target audience, you can't sit there and say everybody who eats, if you have a food product, that's not a target audience. So you have to really think in advance of who is your real target audience. Everybody might eat your product, but they're not all in your target audience. So you have to do some homework in that area. Your brand is your brand once you establish it and the naming and all that. Frame of reference means, what is it in relation to other competition? So if it's a food truck, if it's a marmalade, if it's a hot sauce or whatever that category that you might compete in, those are the frame of reference that delivers. And then this is the hard part. What's your point of difference? Because if you just say it tastes good, well, nobody in the food business believes anything but that. We all think that our food that we offer to anybody tastes good. I'm sure my mom, when she cooked for me, thought that it tastes good. That was not the case, but we didn't want to get anybody in trouble, so we just went with it. But and then the back end is just by saying that you've got a benefit, you have to back it up. You have to give some support for that. So and I'm sorry for harping on this example, but let's say you do. For people, here's a way to do the positioning statement. This is not real. For people who might be interested in exotic foods, my brand is a food truck that delivers a unique Jamaican menu because it's all school recipes that my grandmother handed down. So that's your reason to believe. You offer a Jamaican food truck, that's good. It's different than most food trucks, but it's also homemade recipes or whatever that have been through generations. And that's the kind of exercise you need to go through to really get to what your positioning is. What's a creative brief? So this is another tool that we use to try and get to our marketing communications to work as hard as possible. So it's a blueprint for the development of all your market. So for everything you're going to do, it's the foundation. It absolutely helps bring the messaging to life and helps to guide the creative development for whatever that messaging's about. And when I talk about messaging, there's two components, right? And we've talked a little bit about this in the past. There's the visual reference that can be part of your message, and then obviously copy, the words or music that are associated with it. And all of them are really important, and you want to make sure they're all working as hard as possible for effectiveness for your product or service. Once approved, it's that guidepost for everything against it. So when you get a little bigger, you're going to work with other people who are going to be helping you develop your messaging, and they're not as familiar with what you're all about. So this is a really nice base for them to understand what you're doing, what's going on in your head, so that they can then take it and apply all of their skills, whether they're a copywriter or a graphic designer or whatever, and bring some real life and real magic to what you want in your messaging. So it's an important document for sure. One of the things that it should address, it should definitely have an objective. What's the whole purpose of why you're spending time on do this messaging? Who is it that we're talking to? And again, you have to really work hard on that. What do we want them to feel? So, most of marketing communications isn't just all factual or rational. You're trying to leverage people's emotions. And so you have to think about what you're looking to get there. So in the case of the example I used, you're looking for nostalgia, right? When you're talking about grandma's recipes, it's the emotion that you want to trigger in people is, oh yeah, my grandmother or my aunt or whatever was a good cook too. I have some great memories of what she used to make on holidays or whatever. That's the essence of the emotion you're trying to tap into with your message. Obviously, you got to talk about the benefit. What is it, the ultimate takeaway that they get from buying your product or your service? What's the support point? And then, brand personality and tone is really important as well. We talked about this last week when we were doing brand identity and icons and all of that kind of stuff. It's even your logo communicates a certain level of a personality and has a tone to it. So it could be really fun and colorful. It could be very serious and stated, solid, and anything in between there. But you need to think through what you want your brand personality to be. If you want humor to be part of it, then you have to give that direction to whatever communications people you're working with. If you want to, be nostalgic, then you got to be nostalgic. Jackie and I work with a client now that bought a food product company that's got like 100 years of history, but it's got a very limited appeal. But they're using that as a way to say, we're here, but we're going to launch a new product, a whole bunch of new products and new innovative products as well associated with that. So they're walking a really fine line of nostalgia and modern contemporary products. And that's a tough road to hoe, but we'll help them get there. Okay, so this is a third tool along with the creative brief and the brand positioning statement. It's called a brand pyramid. And again, what this does is it helps you sort of work through everything that will help get to the communications piece. So the bottom level is attributes of a product. And we'll talk about this in a minute as an example. Those are things that almost anything you compete with would share. Functional benefits are things that you deliver on, in terms of it's, let's say it's convenient to open. That's a functional benefit. Emotional benefits are ones we just talked about. You're really tapping into that. The values of the individual user is something that you want to definitely take into consideration. Like you want to align yourself with people who share a lot of what you're trying to accomplish, because it's a real uphill battle to win against everybody. So you want to sort of make sure you're sharing values. So again, Jackie and I work on a product that is a non-GMO project verified. So the client is all about making sure that it's good for the environment and good for farmers and all that kind of stuff. That's a value they share as a company, and they want to pass that along in the products they offer. And then the personality we talked a little bit about a minute ago in terms of tone and all of those elements. So here's an example of each of those. Here's a creative brief. This is a Peanut Chews. This is a small, not small, but not a huge candy company based in, it was based in Philadelphia. It was really old family business that eventually sold to a little bit larger of a family candy business. And the objective was to raise awareness and encourage people to buy it. There's your objective. The target audience was young adults 18 to 24, mostly male. They wanted like people who were a little independent, not crazy, but a little left of mainstream, because the product, if anybody who's ever had it, is not a classic, chocolate covered candy product. It's got a very tough texture. The sweetness is very different than like a Snickers bar, if you will, because they use molasses as a sweetener instead of caramel or sugar. So it's got a different taste, but the people who liked it really liked it. So that's what you're trying to find. We wanted to go after people who were these males who were active and confident, genuine, and so forth. Those are some of the values that we were tapping into. We wanted them to be open-minded and like to try new things because this is an unusual candy. So we wanted them to have that expectation. If we're just going out with another M&M or another Snickers or another whatever, they were going to be disappointed. So we wanted to set it up accordingly. And an interesting observation from some of the research we had done was they want the messaging to be relevant and ring true, but, and this is very true of millennials and all that today, they didn't want to be sold to. They just want to be, communicate openly and fairly to me, but don't go crossing that line and look like you're selling and trying to convince me of something that way. So we wanted to keep that in our minds as we went and developed the messaging. We wanted to be excited that they had found something really unique. We wanted them to feel good that they had a product that, what everybody else might be eating or different than what everybody else is eating. It wasn't just another Snickers. And make them feel like they weren't just another, player in the mix. We talked about this. There's no other candy. It's got a taste that has no other candy bar. So you want to talk about. You always want to reinforce people when you're talking about a food product that it tastes good, but you have to make sure that it's not just a throwaway line. You want to make sure that there's some leverage to that. Support, why should we believe it? These are the various things that I sort of referenced. It's a very substantial chewing experience, so that has a long-lasting benefit. In terms of actual production of the product, they use real fresh roasted peanuts on site. They roasted the peanuts, so that was a uniqueness to it and gave a very strong peanutty taste to it. And instead of being a bar or maybe two big pieces, small, whatever in it. This was back in the day. It was 8 bite-sized pieces in a sleeve, in a candy bar, if you will. So you could either, eat some now and save some and eat it later, or share it or whatever. So it was a little bit different than other candy bars. Again, honest, sincere. That was the personality tone. So that's what we were doing for them. This is another product. It's a cheese product. A spreadable cheese product that you may or may not be familiar with. So in this case, the target audience is middle-aged women with higher incomes, not real high incomes, but higher incomes, not necessarily career focused, pretty much down to earth, connects to the world. She likes to travel a little bit, bringing diverse people together. She likes to entertain and socialize. She likes variety. She wants to feel like, life is full, but not insane and not craziness. She likes quality food in the way she either cooks or shares, and she likes to indulge. And she cooks in advance. She can enjoy the moment, when she's entertaining. She's not somebody that wants to cook every day. And, she's got that sort of live life to the fullest philosophy. So that's another way of going through it. There's a lot of information in there, right? Like, we did a lot of homework with the client to get it narrowed down to those kinds of components. But I bet you by the time I got through half that list, you had a pretty good idea in your head what kind of woman we were talking about. And rather than just say, oh, it's spreadable cheese. Everybody likes spreadable cheese once in a while. Anybody will buy it. That's our target audience. No. So that's that way we did that. This will be a couple examples of advertising that we've done, just to show you advertising means a lot of different things to different people. So we'll go through some of those.
Are you a label reader? One uses bioengineered plants and lots of added stuff. Grassland butter uses wholesome cream and a pinch of salt. Real butter is better. Pure, natural, real. Grassland butter.
So that's a quick 15-second ad. Obviously, butter is the competitive category that they're playing in. But if you notice, they're going up against what's a very hot trend at the moment with plant foods, plant-based foods, and trying to diffuse the fact that while some people might think plant-based is healthy, in reality, if you looked at the label and the level of ingredients that are in it, There's a whole bunch of stuff in there, like chemicals and emulsifiers and all that, whereas butter is just butter. It's just cream and salt. So if you really want to eat healthy, and butter in moderation is certainly very healthy to eat. So that was a very direct way to do that. We produced that for them. They could run it on television. They could run it on their social media channels. In theory, you could even put it on your website if somebody wanted to watch it that way, as a way to get familiar with the brand. So that's
Are you a label reader?
That's that one. Here's the same positioning, still talking about simple ingredients. And obviously the non-GMO is a core component of it. And this is an ad that would be in, whatever, Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, as well as a digital component. So you could run this, somewhere out there. It could be on a social channel. It could be just an evergreen ad that's running. You're looking at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and this thing could open up on a box on the bottom right-hand corner or whatever. So very simple again, but that's another way of getting the message across, showing the ingredient package in the back of the ingredients. This is what it's called a GIF or GIF. It's again similar messaging. Check out the label, non-GMO, and whatever, but it's a different way of doing it. It's a little more engaging. The movement makes it a little bit more interesting, and so it's the same message, same audience, just a different way to try and attract them. This is another video that we did. This one was for social. So no voice, just music. You saw, highlights of certain rational copy points, just cream, never bioengineered. Those are all, very factual, rational points, but it's a warm spot. It's got some pretty pictures. So you're still conveying a fair amount of emotion in it as well. So it's another example of it. Oh, we don't have to watch that twice. Wow, we like it. We don't have to make everybody else watch it twice. And then this is another one. This is for another product that they make. It's a grass-fed product that's imported. And so this is another post for them. So in that case, you're using a lot of pretty imagery, the cows out grazing in the beautiful mountains and all that. Again, a music track. This is all hard work that people put into this to figure out what the right music is to go with that in terms of tone, and then obviously it pays off at the end with we always want to do that with a new product in particular. Pay off in the end with a package shot and your final claim and what's important in terms of what the message you're trying to get across. Okay, so those are some elements. So what we've covered so far is the background and the foundation, the strategic elements of marketing communications, some of the tools you need to get there, creative briefs, positioning statements, brand pyramids, and the like, and then shared some examples with you of different clients that represent that kind of work that we've done. So now we'll get into the social media piece, and Jackie's going to take it from here.
All right.
And I'll be Vanna for you there, Jack. I'll be your slide person.
I know who Vanna White is.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so if I could see you guys, I'm sure that all of your hands would be raised. But how many of us are using social media personally on a daily basis? I know I am. I know Mark is. I think everybody pretty much these days has at least one social account in one form or another.
Right. So you can either raise your hand or do it in the chat either way. I've seen a couple of raised hands already.
There you go.
Yeah.
How many of us are using at least one social media platform for business? If you want to raise your hand or type it in the chat.
Good. So there's 8, 9.
Good.
Cool.
There we go. All right.
And then
if you are using social for your business, how many of us feel that we're using the platforms to their fullest potential? We got a barely in the chat from Shelley. Okay.
Right.
Not at all.
Honest. Thanks for being honest, Shelley.
That's why we're here. Definitely not. Got it.
Right. Yeah, we definitely, we agree. Or lots of clients are like that. And I will be honest, even Tandem's that way. So,
Totally.
yeah.
All right. So we obviously know everything that social media can do. So how can we make this specifically work for you and your brand and your company? So we're going to give an overview of what we're going to talk about. There's a lot of platforms out there. You got to figure out which fits the best for your company, for your product, for the behavior. You have to set your goals and make sure that you stick to them. You want to establish a plan. You want to establish a schedule. So we're going to get into a bunch of different scheduling tools for that and tactics. And then once your brand does grow and your following does grow, how you react to that, how you adapt and move forward. All right, so the water cooler analogy, it's funny. So the water cooler was invented in 1930, and not until 1970 did it, spark and hit all the sales. And that's because the cubicle was invented in 1967. So basically people were at their desks seated, they needed to get up, they needed to walk away, and they wanted to socialize because human beings have an innate, sense that they want to share information, they want to give information, they want to talk. So you can think of social media as our modern day water cooler. People pal around, they share information, they are constantly going on and checking stuff out because they have an innate desire to be informed and be social. And as soon as you have that in your head, you can kind of start figuring out which platforms work for you and kind of capitalizing off of that word of mouth, that digital word of mouth, I guess. So here are some examples of that. Just shout outs, just basic, hey, I like this. This is up, this tastes good, this cake, the cake on the right looks great. So that's that constant word of mouth that social media provides for us.
I'm sure some of you have done this yourselves. If you go out to dinner or whatever, and you're taking a picture and sending it to your friends or your partners or whoever.
Yeah. All right, so there's a bunch of platforms out there, and probably the overarching thing that I needed to understand when I started my social game was that you can't have the same behavior for every single platform. Every platform has their own trends, they have their own things going on, and what works for Facebook may not work for LinkedIn, which may not work for Pinterest. So you have to take your time and research what platforms work for you, which platforms work for your brand, where your customers are. People could be talking about your product before you're even signed on. So you want to go where they are. And, figure out what fits your voice. And, it has to be a long-term thing. It can't be what's going to fit my voice this month, or I have content that's really cool here, but can it last you, an entire editorial calendar? The rule of thumb that we kind of use and that we found in our social experience is that Facebook and Instagram are where most of everybody's at. Facebook is the Goliath. There's 2.5 billion active monthly users, majority of that being in the 30 to 49 age range. And Facebook has so many opportunities for business, whether that be creator studio, for tools, for scheduling, ads, targeting. It has everything. Facebook really has it down. So that's, if you're going to pick one, majority of your consumers are on Facebook. And Facebook bought Instagram, so they're closely paired. So everything that you do on one, you can pretty much do on the other. Instagram, 37% of US adults use Instagram. The demographic's a little bit younger, it's 18 to 29. So that being a visual app, it's pretty much more based on creativity, discovery, exploration, and recently has had a huge burst on e-commerce. Instagram shopping has become huge. Putting your product on Instagram and merch and stuff has become huge. And that's recent. So there are also a ton of different ways to post on Instagram, whether it be stories, reels, IGTV, and then the normal grid posts. So you have a lot there that you can work with these two platforms.
Talk a little bit about reels and stories, how they're a little different.
Yeah, so reels and stories have both exploded in the past couple of years. Stories, as we know, are 24 hours. They're kind of like a daily diary in a way. You can post and give an outreach without it actually bombarding the grid. So it's kind of like a loophole. And Reels is Instagram's way to compete with TikTok, essentially. And they're giving major rewards if you are posting reels, whether that be engagement or putting you on like the For You page and stuff like that. So there's opportunity within both of those for growth.
Yeah, we just started doing some of those for one of our clients, the butter client, and they're really, really effective and great. You know, anything people love to watch people prepping food and cooking food and you know, assembling recipes and all that kind of stuff. So it's in the food world that most all of you are in, it's a really good use of that.
For sure.
And so, and as Jackie said, you know, these are the two that primarily are working, but, you know, as is true for social media, you know, just a few years ago, it was all Facebook pretty much, and Insta wasn't there. And then Insta came in, Snapchat was in there, you know, and they both try and react to each other. They try and, so if Snapchat all of a sudden starts attracting people, then the big guys try and come up with programs that are somewhat similar, as she referenced, with Reels and TikTok. So, and TikTok is huge today with a smaller, younger audience, but, you know, by the time, you know, you might get your business up and running a year from now, the whole world could be a little bit different. So it's important to, you know, pay attention to all of them. But the reality is, as Jack said, that the biggest group so far are still you captured in these two. And in your stage of your development, you want to do a really good job in places where, you know you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. If you're going to invest your time creating some of the stuff that Jackie's going to talk about, you'll reach a lot more people and it'll work more effectively in these two platforms than trying to figure out a Snapchat or a TikTok at the moment. But, you know, down the road, certainly they're going to be important for you.
Yeah, so once you've kind of figured out which platforms you want to invest your time into, it's important to set your goals. You don't want to go in just guns a-blazing. You should go in with a plan. Long-term goals first and very general. Obviously, as Mark stated before, building awareness is huge. You know, you want to get the word out. You want to spread the word, get your name out there. Also, you want to increase sales, grow sales online, and then overall just generate leads. And after all that, you can kind of hone in on what you really want to accomplish on your channels, whether that be, you know, I want 100 followers by the end of this month, 1,000 after, you know, this date, higher engagement rates, et cetera, et cetera. You can hone in on those details a little bit more after the general is accomplished.
Yep.
And then oddly enough, once your goals are set, one place you really, really want to look for reference is within your competitors. I can't tell you the amount of PowerPoints I've made for Mark, sending him, you know, other posts or other copy or other visuals or communications that our competitors have put out there. So identifying them is huge, seeing where they are, what they're posting, how they're posting, the tone, the behavior. How does that make you feel as a consumer? How does their audience feel? Are their engagement rates high? Are people responding? Are people commenting? And then you kind of from there figure out what your competitors are doing, if you like it, what you do like, and then mix that with your creative brief.
Yeah, and just to build on that point for a sec, that when you're looking at all these different competitors or what other people are doing on social, and you're looking for inspiration or whatever, you know, keep in mind when you think about your competitive set, it's broader than you probably think it is. So the classic story I think we told in a couple of the classes with George and I is that when he and I were working together with Taste the Cake, and we were the agency and he was the client, you know, the agency up until one point was basically considering them as a snack cake company. That's it, just a snack cake company. And they competed against Little Debbie and Entenmann's and all the others. And as time went on, it became more obvious that they weren't just a snack cake company, they were a snack company, and had, especially as their product portfolio started building out, and they competed against all kinds of snacks, healthy snacks, non-healthy snacks, or whatever. So we had to redefine who our competitors were, and then help them grow in a new way that way. So again, when you think about your business if you're, don't be too narrow in defining who it is. It's the old share of stomach idea. You might think that, your food truck that's got a Jamaican bent to it there's not other Jamaican food trucks. Very true, maybe, but there might be 7 other food trucks within a block and a half of yours that are all trying to get somebody's stomach, right? So they're all going to be competitive on some level.
All right, and then you want to get into kind of your scheduling and planning. This is huge with social, because I always like to say social media doesn't sleep. It's not a 9 to 5. It doesn't turn off. You can go to bed, everything's great. You wake up the next day, there's 100 comments telling you stink. And that just is. So it never turns off. So the best thing that you can do is be prepared. And by creating editorial calendars, doing your mood boards, writing all of your copy is huge. It'll be good when things go wrong, because things can go wrong. But as long as you have your stuff, your ducks in a row, you'll be good. So time posting is huge on our big 2 apps. Not every app is as timely as Facebook and Instagram, but Facebook and Instagram, generally, you want to be posting between 10 a.m. and 3. We like to do like a noon. Whenever you see those darker patches within those graphs, that's when most people are on and highest engagement is taking place. So anywhere between 10 and 3, mid-afternoon, fine. You don't really want to go much later or earlier. It can get lost in the shuffle, can get lost in the feed. But with your other not as timely apps, it's not as important for that hard time. But with Facebook and Instagram, you want to stay on it. And yeah, as I said, posting schedules can vary depending on the platform. But all that really you need to do is stay consistent. So if you're posting 3 times a week, make sure that's a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not 3 random days. Make sure the time is consistent at the time you're posting. So again, between that 10 to 3 period, that'll just help with your analytics. It'll help with your reach. It'll help with people, getting familiar with your new posts overall, and it helps you with your planning as well. And then with Instagram, as we talked about a little bit earlier, you want to plan out your Instagram stories as well. I think they started much more casual than what they've become, but they are essentially posts. And they give basically the consumer a tool to start a conversation with you, a direct call to action. So you want to have your Instagram stories thought out and just as attractive as your grid posts. So here are 3 examples of an editorial calendar. Whichever works for you works. Nothing's wrong as long as you're scheduling things out in a concise way that you and your teammates can read. Up top, we have a spreadsheet. This does an adequate job. It has Facebook, the platform, the copy, where the assets are, the dates. Bottom left, it's used in like a Google Calendar. Bottom right is what I like to use because I like to see the visuals. I like to know what I'm posting. And our client likes to see the visuals, but whatever works as long as you're doing, scheduling things out and keeping it organized and prepared. And then in addition to, the own tools that you'll be creating for yourself, there are a bunch of other things on the internet that just make it so much easier. First and foremost being Facebook Creator Studio that can post and schedule out your entire week. So like me, I know we're posting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Monday morning, I go on Creator Studio. I schedule everything out, all my copy, all my visuals. That way I know everything's ready if I'm not always available at 12 o'clock to be posting it, and I can just monitor. And Facebook Creator Studio also offers that for Instagram, and it's a very, very helpful tool. Later is another website where essentially you can link things using link in bio. That's a very common tool for Instagram, especially if you're referencing back to a website, as we use it a lot. Referencing recipes. So, hey, you want to check this out? Links in our bio. And it's really, really simple. It's also free. Both of these are free, which is huge and very helpful. And overall just helps with scheduling, analytics, posting, all that. All right, so now you're finally posting and you have your first positive comment and it's the best thing in the world. You always want to respond to positive comments, regardless if it's an emoji, regardless if it's, I love what you're doing. You always want to keep that open conversation with your consumer. And it doesn't have to be, a long thank you, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I like just doing the clap emojis or this one, just something to communicate with the person who's communicating on your post. And just as excited as you'll be when you get your positive comments, the negative one comes around and it stinks. But the rule of thumb that we use is as long as it's not offensive, violent, triggering anybody, hurting anybody's feelings, you got to leave it up. It's a conversation starter, and it's worse if you get caught into a predicament where you're deleting negative comments. No one likes that. But anything that's too crude, too violent, triggering, just hide it. Just keep it off your page, off your platforms.
Yeah, and just to build on that a little bit. So what we've sort of done for most of our clients is, if you are going to get some negative feedback, it's you can't avoid it. But you want to engage, but if you can take it offline, if you do it into a private message, that's really the best way to do it, because you're giving that person enough respect that you're going to respond to them and not just ignore them. But you also don't want, if it gets into a bad match, you don't want that all going on with everybody else. So you manage the individual circumstances, but and then if it gets really ugly, as Jack said, you pull it down. But the problem with pulling it down is then they can let they let everybody know that you're pulling it down and you're not open-minded, and then it just mushrooms. So fortunately, in the kinds of industry that our clients are in, it's not too bad. Not too many people are getting that nasty and angry, but you do have to pay attention to it.
Totally. Yeah, and then once you're seeing your comments, you're seeing your likes, you really want to get to track your analytics and all your data, because your data is the most important thing. Basically informs how you should do everything moving forward. It gives you a whole skew of behaviors and what basically the people who are into your pages are liking. So if you see here, the second post down got the highest amount of reach, engagement, and page views. What about the copy, or what about the visual excited people or attracted people? Those are things that we can take into account and then duplicate moving forward. And all the analytics for your Facebook and Instagram pages are within Facebook Creator Studio as well. So everything's in one place. It's really, really helpful.
Yeah, as we've talked about in other aspects of our presentations in the past, talking to consumers or getting consumer feedback is really, really important, and especially in the early stages of your entrepreneurial setup. And this is a perfect example of how that all comes to you free, right? So this is learning, if you can put the time into it, as Jackie does and the rest of the team. You can learn a lot from studying what's been going on here. The analytics are there, you spend the time, and then you say, okay, well, that's working better than that, so let's try some more of those, or whatever it might be. So, and this is real consumer feedback, because they're the ones responding. This isn't our guess or our assumption of what's working or not working. This is cold hard evidence. So use it, and it's free, other than your time.
All right, so we're moving on to influencers. So Instagram has proven to be the best app for business to reach new audiences quickly, and influencers is a huge part of that. So back to that water cooler method, that sharing information, giving information. There's a bunch of reasons why you would want to hire influencers. Seasonal campaigns, a lot of stuff picks up around the holidays. If you notice, a lot of cross promotions, product cross promotions, physical deliverables, for example, like with our butter client. A deliverable from an influencer would be a beautiful recipe asset or image that we could use on our own social platforms or on our website. Long-term spokespeople, and that essentially is, that person's reaching your audience and you're also reaching theirs as well. So you get to reach a whole new audience with your product, but it's still an audience that is interested because the influencer has a strong relation to your brand. And going about finding influencers, do your research. You want to look through hashtags. Hashtags are a great searching tool on Instagram. Comments about your business or products. You want people who are authentic and relatable. You don't, want a robot, especially for a niche product or a smaller business. And you want to take into account their follower count and engagement rate, which we're about to talk about, because high follower count isn't always the best thing when you're looking for an influencer. So your engagement rate, this is kind of the magic number for if you want to put that time and money into an influencer and a sponsorship. So essentially the formula is the number of likes and comments that someone gets on their post divided by, that's that line, the follow count, multiplied by 100 to get the percentage. And you'll see that formula in action on the next slide. But essentially you want to see at least a 2% average engagement rate. This will show how much an influencer, a micro influencer, a nano influencer may charge per sponsored post. And one thing I think that we should touch on is the word influencer gets thrown around a lot, but there are, kind of categories and classes to that. So essentially an influencer is someone who has over 100K followers on their accounts. So think, I don't know, Kylie Jenner. Someone with less than 100,000 is a micro influencer, still a large following, but micro. And then someone with less than 10,000 is called a nano influencer. And nano influencers have proven to be very, very valuable in this kind of influencer long-term partnership. So we have an example of an engagement rate. Here we have Kim K, and she's doing a sponsored post on her Instagram. She doesn't endorse anything other than her own products. Right here, she's endorsing her KKW Beauty, I think, set. So you see that Kim obviously has a huge following, 207 million. You want to take that number, that 1,900,000 number, plus her comments, so the likes plus the comments, divided by the 207 million followers, multiplied by 100, and you'll come up with a 0.9% engagement rate. So not hitting that 2%, obviously she has more followers than most people, but how many people is she actually reaching? So that's why, if you want to go to the next slide, Mark.
Yep.
That's why engagement more isn't always more. So here you see less than 25,000 followers. So a smaller micro influencer to a nano influencer may be more helpful to you if getting your brand name out there, getting that reach from people. If you're looking to an influencer, 10,000 and under is kind of where you want to be. The number of followers obviously matters. So you probably won't want to be with someone who was like 3,000, but upwards 5 and on, it's a good spot to be in. And then just some other things to consider is what kind of content do they regularly post? So you want to, reach an intersection of your audience and theirs. How long are their captions? Long captions are in. It's no longer about, short. We want authenticity. People want real stories. People want to know these people. They want to hear their voice. And then, of course, the quality of their followers. A lot of those large accounts have a lot of bots and fake accounts. That's typical. So if you want to do some deep diving into the followers of your influencer, who's in their comments, who's in their likes, that's a good way to determine the quality. Yeah, and then just to wrap it up, a few golden rules with social media is keep your customers updated on every platform you're present. So that's that consistency. Keep with your posting, keep at the right times, the right days. Always be driving consumers to your products or services. What toolkit responses are you giving them? Authenticity, entertainment, information, action. Offer great customer service, just like you would in real life. Respond to comments, reach out to people, private message people. Think mobile first. Everything starts with the phone. Everybody's using the phone. No one's on desktop anymore. So use your mobile to look at posts, different things, do your research. People want to see real things, so no stock, and stay consistent.
Yeah, great job. And I think that they're really a good summation of what's important to do. And again, for most of you, if you're going to be managing your own social, or even if you have a family member or friend who's going to be managing it for you, you're still going to have to pay some attention to it. So you do want to, make it manageable for you. It's better to go out and just do it once a week, on a consistent basis and do it well, than, do 3 times this week and then go, dark for a couple of weeks or whatever. It's just the consistency is really important, and you are looking to build that following. So people, really, they need to be reminded. They need that consistent. I'm using the word consistent too much, but it's got to be an ongoing conversation you're trying to establish with these people. And so it doesn't have to be frequent as much as it has to be ongoing. And that's sort of the key there. And be real, as Jackie said, like, get your personality across in these. Write it in a way that gives the full story. It doesn't have to be real short like it used to be. Use real footage and real stuff. I mean, within reason, you don't want it to be tacky, but so yeah, they're all pretty good rules to follow and think about as you're going through it. So that's kind of the presentation for tonight that way. We did finish a little early, so I'm happy to, if you want, answer any, or not just me, both of us are here to answer any questions you might have. It's a little easier for you to put it in a chat. I know it's not easy, but if there's anything you wanted, either a question or an observation or your own thought, about social, go ahead and weigh in. Or not. If you're not intimidated, but if either you can't think of anything right now that you want to chat about, that's fine. Tomorrow night, as Divya had said, we'll be doing our office hours from 6:30 to 8:30. That's where you can get some one-on-one sort of time and consulting, if you will. So we're here for you that way. Food photography. Would you hire someone to do this to enable the calendar postings? Yes and no. I mean, yes, you could hire somebody. It depends on how much you want to spend or whatever. Or if if you have a really good phone and a pretty good eye, these days you can take decent food photography with a good iPhone. Again, if you go out to dinner or you're at a nice restaurant and you get a beautiful looking dish, as long as the lighting's relatively decent, you can, take a nice shot and share that. It looks pretty good. It doesn't have to be professional looking, but it doesn't want to be tacky looking either. So, so I don't know, I don't know what your resources are like. Absolutely, if you can afford it, a real food photographer is the way to go. And one way you can sort of, share that expense is have them shoot stuff for your website and then spread those photographs over, your social media as well. So if you hire a food photographer, get a lot done by them in a given day and just shoot a whole bunch of good stuff and then use it in different ways. That way you amortize the cost across that way. Shelley, yes, we are concerned about how Facebook is used with regard to translating into actual sales. That's a really good question. How can you track it? Well, Jack, do you have any thoughts on it before I spout off in terms of Shelley's comment?
I was just gonna kind of get into the digital advertising aspect of everything.
Right.
But yeah, you can.
Yeah, no, and I think that Facebook, social can be a driver of sales directly, especially if you have an e-commerce component or something like that. Then you can trace it. But if you're, there's other reasons to be using social beyond just tracking it to an individual sale. It's all about, as we talked about earlier, it's about creating awareness. It's about creating a dialogue or an interest in your product on an ongoing basis that may not trigger right away to sales. So, and you got to keep playing with your messaging to see what responds or what draws a better response. I would say to you, and we talked about this in the very beginning, Shelley, that as an objective, I don't know that I would say that an objective of Facebook is to generate sales. I mean, unless you're an e-commerce platform, because it's just not built necessarily for that. It can contribute to it, but it's not necessarily its main intention. If you want to do that and you're trying to build sales, then your messaging should be very focused on those kind of elements, and it's got to have promotions in it and that kind of stuff. And that gets a little wonky in Facebook. Thank you for the compliment. Difference in response rates on social between stills and short video clips.
I can do this one.
Go ahead.
So basically, as I spoke about earlier, every platform has a different behavior. So you're not going to have one overarching rule of thumb for all of them with video and stills. What I can tell you is that Facebook is more in tune with longer videos, the 2-minute to 4-minute range, GIFs, and short 3 to 5 second clips, even 10-second videos don't perform the best on Facebook. Instagram is the flip side because Instagram introduced IGTV for those longer videos. But on the grid, most of the time, those shorter 10-second and unders work better. So Facebook and Instagram kind of have the opposite. And then video in general is just expanding. Obviously, we spoke about TikTok and everything. So I only see, trends getting that video will be longer in the future. I think that, the short GIFs and those 10-second clips are on their way out. But that generally is the rule of thumb: longer on Facebook, shorter on Instagram.
Yeah, and video is definitely these days is more powerful. Everything's moving to video as much as you can. That's why these platforms are incorporating more video in their service, because everybody wants to watch stuff. We're idiots that way. Sorry, Shelley, just go back to a follow-up point on the thing with Facebook. If you want to use your Facebook to drive traffic to your website, the website might be able to pull in the sales a little bit easier for you than the Facebook will. Like create the interest or the urge or whatever for them to go to the website, and then on your website, close the deal. That's where you want to close the actual sale, if there's a way to do that. Anything else? And the other thing is, in a couple weeks, September 11th, so it's more than a couple, we'll be doing our boot camp, which is an all-day session, and that you're all welcome to join. It's a really good exercise, both to participate and to observe. So the morning sessions are some content, but mostly it's a bunch of breakout sessions with a number of different people. Some are subject matter experts or whatever, that will give you some one-on-one feedback, and then that's all happening in the morning. And in the afternoon, you actually get to present your business case to the team, and we all sit there and evaluate and give you feedback on what we think. It's sort of like Shark Tank without any money. So it's a really good exercise, because you get access to people that aren't in your immediate sphere, and you're going to get some good, honest feedback. You're going to get objective feedback, whereas sometimes we're all guilty of it. The people around you are going to just say nice things about what you're doing and give you positive stuff, but sometimes you need to hear some tougher messages as well.
That was September 11th, Mark. September
11th is the boot camp. Shelley, back to what can you suggest for an organic way to get PR? There's a number of different ways you can try. So certainly, if you have any relationships with anybody in any media, you would do that. If there's a local newspaper or a local radio station that you might be familiar with, they're looking for content all the time and stories. So you can do it that way. You can put together a pitch piece where you package it together and send it out to a media list and send it to a bunch of radio stations or TV stations or newspapers or whatever. You can do that, and just take some time, and you only need one to hit on it, if you will. But that's another way to go, and leveraging your network. If your neighbor knows somebody who works at a TV station or a radio station or a newspaper, you try and reach out that way. Again, if it's you don't always want to get to the food editor or the food person, even though you're in the food business. Sometimes if you're doing something really cool, you can reach out to like the local community writer, somebody who's writing for that, or an entertainment or event person. Let's say you're going to be doing a sampling at a community event. That would be something to reach out to them on and say, we're going to this event, we're going to be sampling our new product, and that might catch somebody's attention that way. Should you bring a sample of the product as well to?
I think that was for the boot camp.
Okay, no, it's all going to be virtual. I mean, if you have product that you can share with us, you have packaging, we're happy to see it all. And maybe someday we won't be virtual and we'll be doing this live, and then that'd be great. You can all cook for us and we're going to sample everything, and that'd be great. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for all your time and your interest. And Divya, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mark and Jackie. I have posted a link to the optional office hours for tomorrow. So if you have any specific questions, please do join. I have also posted a link to a survey. So please make sure that you fill in. It is required by our funders, the Small Business Administration, so that we can provide no-cost webinars to you all. For those interested, I have also posted a link to the bootcamp. You can register in advance there. Also, we have a resources document where you can see all the upcoming webinars, and you can, if you want to schedule sessions with our SBDC consultants, you can do that as well. Thank you, everyone. Oh, do you do paid consultations? I think that's one for you, Mark.
Yeah. So thanks, Holly. Yes. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If it's general business stuff, Temple's got it covered. They got more people, that have all that licensing, certifications, ServSafe. They're a terrific resource for all of that. If there's something specific, more in the marketing communications end of it in a food industry, yes, we could certainly help you out, and happy to do that. And the way you're going to reach out to me is Divya is going to put my email address in there, or I can put my email. Why do I need Divya? It's just going to take me a minute and a half to figure out how to do it. That's all. Especially sitting here in the dark. That's me. And if it's something for George, obviously we'll get George involved as well, or social media team, whatever you want.
Thank you so much, Mark and Jackie. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.